Hello my friends, my name is AJ and welcome back to my book nook. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I had a lot of fun making my video talking about Roman Holiday, and even though it's not book related, I really wanted to make another video talking about another classic movie. So today we are going to be talking about the movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is a movie musical comedy from 1953 starring Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe. It's probably Marilyn Monroe's most well-known work, especially her role in the musical number Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, which has been referenced over the years in many different music videos, movies, TV shows, anything you can think of. That iconic pink dress is everywhere. Despite this being the role that really pushed Monroe into stardom in her roles as kind of the dumb blonde characters, she was actually not even considered the star at this point. Jane Russell is the top billing name for this film, and at the time, Monroe wasn't even considered a big star. The story of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is that of two showgirls, Dorothy Shaw and Lorelei Lee, who are struggling through their experiences with love. Lorelei tends to think about how much money a man has, while Dorothy is more focused on what the man looks like. Lorelei is in a relationship with heir Gus Esmond, and she desires to go to France to marry him. However, when his father does not allow him to go to France with her because he considers Lorelei to be a gravedigger. Gravedigger? Oh gosh. However, when Gus's father decides However, when he is not allowed to go to France with her because his father considers her to be a gold digger, Lorelei and Dorothy go on their cruise themselves, with Dorothy as Lorelei's chaperone. Dorothy must figure out her relationship with the secretive Ernie Malone, while also looking out for Lorelei and any of the mistakes that she might make that might lead to her losing her relationship with Gus. One thing that I think is great about this movie is that it really definitely stands up to time. Dorothy and Lorelei feel like very modern characters, and especially for the time period that the movie was released in, I think that it just really holds up and it continues to be hilarious. Dorothy, for example, is a very snarky and sarcastic woman. She's very flirtatious and she knows what she wants. She's willing to have a little bit of fun flirting with guys, but she also knows that if she wants to be in a real relationship, she has certain boundaries that she's not willing to cross, and she's not willing to change herself for anyone. In fact, when she first meets her love interest, Ernie Malone, he starts to brag about how much money he has, thinking that that will impress her. However, she immediately puts on the brakes and loses complete interest in him because bragging about money is something that she finds really unattractive in men. And she's not willing to change her mind just because she finds him attractive or just because he has a lot of money.
Oh, no, you're not one of those, are you?
One of what?
The kind who thinks he has to tell a girl how much money he has.
What's the matter with having money?
Yes, I'm afraid you are. Do me a favor, will you, Malone? Go whistle up a rope.
She's also just a very entertaining character. She has a lot of really great lines, a lot of really funny moments. Like I said, she's very sarcastic, and she always speaks her mind, which leads to some very dry comments, which is my exact sense of humor.
Dorothy Shaw, I want you to remember, you're supposed to be the chaperone on this trip.
Now, let's get this straight, Gus. The chaperone's job is to see that nobody else has any fun. But nobody chaperones the chaperone.
But Dorothy...
That's why I'm so right for this job.
I absolutely love Dorothy. She's my favorite character in this movie. Lorelei also gives off a very modern vibe as a character. She is a girl who has very expensive taste, and while some people may accuse her of being a gold digger, she really does care for Gus. She genuinely loves him to the point where she's willing to fight for him even though his father doesn't want them to be together, when it would be easy for her to just find another rich man if she really were just a gravedigger. Why do I keep saying gravedigger? Even though it would be easier for her to just find another man if she was really just a gold digger. She can be smart about some things, however, she is very naive about the world, which means that her friendship with Mr. Beekman does end up with both of them really using each other. He's definitely flirting a lot with her and is enjoying the company of this young, attractive woman, and she doesn't really seem to realize that he's doing that, but she's also really only and such a good friend to him because she wants a diamond tiara. I mean, who can blame her though? Let's be real. Despite that, she never actually does anything that could ruin her relationship with Gus. She never does anything on a romantic level, or more so because she does genuinely care about Gus. And even though she is using Mr. Beekman, she genuinely isn't trying to use Gus, even though she does like having the benefits of having his money. I think that nowadays, as we look at this movie, I think without considering the context of the time period, it can actually put a different lens on it where it would be easier to think of her as a gold digger. But if we consider the context and the time when this movie comes out, it allows us to take a better look at who she is and her motives. So this movie came out in 1953, but it's actually based on a musical of the same name that came out in 1949. Now this is a really interesting time period because this is post-World War II, and during World War II, while all the men were off fighting, women were off working the jobs that they would normally be working at home. And then when the men came back after the war, they were expected to take their positions back, and women would just go back to the way it was before, staying at home and having kids and not working. But now women had gotten a taste of that freedom and they enjoyed it and they wanted to work more. But men didn't really want that. They wanted someone at home to take care of the kids, but they were no longer able to use the excuse that women were incapable because they had already proven that they were. So there were some women who had started working at this period, but it was mostly in positions as secretaries, or as we have seen, some as performers. Now, because Lorelai is a performer, that means that her job is very much based on her youth, her beauty, and her charm. And these are things that will eventually go away as she gets older. She'll no longer be able to be a performer the older she gets, and she knows this. Lorelai has gotten used to being able to have money to do the things she wants, and she has expensive tastes, and she's gotten used to being able to have those expensive treats that she wants. But she knows that she won't always be able to work. So by marrying someone, not only is she marrying them for being in love, but she's also has to consider the fact that this person is going to have to support them when she gets older. And she realizes that she does not want to have to worry about money. As she says to Dorothy, how will you have time to be in love if you're constantly worried about money? Dorothy is someone who doesn't really care about that. She only just wants to find someone that she loves and someone she's attracted to, and figures that they'll figure out the rest along the way. But Lorelai is more concerned with what the future will look like. Lorelai doesn't just care about the money. If she did, I think we would very easily see her moving on very quickly after things with Gus end, but we don't see that. We see her still willing to take him back and fight for him, even if that means that they might not necessarily get the money for a while, because she doesn't just care about the money. She is concerned about it. She does want to be stable, but it also isn't the only thing she cares about. As she says at the end of the movie,
"Don't you know that a man being rich is like a girl being pretty? You might not marry a girl just because she's pretty, but my goodness, doesn't it help?"
One of my big pet peeves in rom-coms that you see kind of in the 2000s and then also in the kind of early 2010s is you see these friendships between women that are not very healthy friendships at all. A lot of times they're built on rivalries, a lot of times they're kind of frenemies, a lot of times they're not supportive and they end up backstabbing each other or talking bad about each other behind their back. And frankly, I really don't like that. I want to see movies where the women in them are healthy friendships and it's filled with girls supporting girls. That's what I want to see. And that's what this movie from like over 60 years ago has given us. Lorelai and Dorothy are very different. As I discussed, they have very different tastes in what it means to find a man to love. But the thing is that they're very supportive of each other. As I mentioned, Lorelai is smart about some things, but she's also very naive about the world, and Dorothy is always there to look out for her and explain things to her. She doesn't let anyone talk bad about her friend, and the minute that she hears Ernie starting to speak bad about her, she immediately stops him and immediately tells him not to say bad things about her friend like that.
Now listen, Malone, let's get this straight. Nobody talks about Lorelai but me. She's quite a girl, you just don't know her.
Lorelai is also looking out for Dorothy in ways that aren't very helpful, but she thinks she's doing her best. She really wants Dorothy to have a stable life in the future, so she's very focused on trying to tell Dorothy that she does have to think about the money that she'll have in the future, as she knows they won't be able to perform forever.
You don't want to end up with a loveless marriage, do you?
Me, loveless?
That's right. Because if a girl's spending all of her time worrying about the money she doesn't have, how is she going to have any time for being in love?
She always tries to get her to focus on that, to the point where she will actually try and set Dorothy up with some wealthy passenger on the boat. The two of them don't necessarily understand each other all the time, but they're always so supportive of each other. And even though Dorothy doesn't necessarily support all of Lorelai's actions, knowing that she's really just using some friendships to get diamonds out of it, she definitely is there to help her if she ever gets in trouble, even to the point where she actually does commit a few crimes for her in this movie. Let's get into that. This part is going to be filled with a lot of spoilers for the film. I mean, there's been a bit of spoilers throughout this, but this one is pretty big. First of all, let me just say, this movie is the most chaotic thing I've ever seen, and I absolutely love that. When Dorothy discovers that Ernie Malone is a private investigator and has secretly been taking pictures of Lorelai with Mr. Beekman, she immediately goes to work on a plan to try and get those pictures back. The original plan is for Lorelai to break into his room to try and steal them back, but when that doesn't work and she gets locked in the room, she has to try and escape through a porthole. She gets stuck, and this leads to one of the funniest scenes with the young heir who sits at their dinner table. It's an absolutely hilarious scene involving misunderstandings and trying to come up with excuses on the fly, and it's just so funny.
Are you feeling well, my dear?
Yes, thank you ever so. Except for being so cold. I must have caught a chill.
Stop that.
I beg your pardon?
Well, laryngitis, I guess.
With that plan unsuccessful, they decide that he must have the film with him on his person. So Dorothy brings him back to their room, where they decide to have a little cocktail party with him to try and get the film from him. Essentially what they do is they make a very strong cocktail complete with sleeping pills in it to drug this man to try and steal his jacket from him. When they can't find it in the jacket, they realize it must be in his pants pocket, so they decide to pour water all over him to get those from him. The entire scene is just so insanely chaotic, and I have to imagine that filming it was so much fun, because I can't imagine not bursting out laughing while filming that. Later on in this movie, Lorelai gets accused of stealing a diamond tiara, and to cover for her friend and let her escape, Dorothy decides to pretend to be Lorelai in court, and in order to stall, decides to put on a giant performance in the courtroom. Overall, I think that this movie is just absolutely hilarious. It's such a fun movie, and it really holds up over time. If you've never seen a Marilyn Monroe movie, I definitely think that this is a good place to start. It's very crazy, but it's definitely not too complicated of a story to dive right into. It's really funny. The music is absolutely phenomenal, and the characters are these strong, supportive, modern women with a very chaotic and hilarious storyline. It's just honestly such a good rom-com, and it's so better than so many of the ones that I've seen over the years. It's crazy that it's remained so applicable even to this day. It's honestly just genuinely one of my favorite classic movies, and I highly suggest that all of you give it a watch. But that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. Have you watched Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and did you have the same opinion to me, or have you not watched it and now this made you want to? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with all of you. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video.